As you see here, Proxmox is on your server. It's provisioned. Everything is done. Each person may have a different set of hardware. So with that, let's figure out how to explore the hardware, and that's the point of this video. Okay, we're sitting here looking at Proxmox version 8.04. We see three particular areas here. Each one is related. In other words, the selection for this one is that. For notes, we see no notes. So the first one over here will contain drives, networks, nodes, and it will contain a lot of virtual machines or containers once we put them in here, but I have none. And essentially, the data center itself, which can have multiple nodes, which each of the nodes can have multiple virtual machines and multiple containers and multiple disk drives. So let's go through a little better description of this. So if I click the local network, you see I already have one virtual bridge right here. Here's a drive. I can look at whether I have backups, ISO images, templates, or the permissions on those drives, and so on and so forth. What we're going to look at during this period is we're going to focus on the network, but we're going to pick up a few side items here as well. I will say that there is a folder view, there is a pool view, and I like the server view because it's more of a hierarchy here. Okay, you can look at the shell right here, but you can also pop out a shell. So if I pop out a shell, I'm looking here, I'm going to pop out two shells so that I can operate between those two. And what we'll find is I'll move one slightly off to the left and move another one. Bear with me for a moment as I move the other one slightly off to the right. So if they're hanging off just a little bit, I can actually access them better. The first thing I'm going to do with one of them is I'm going to look at the command ls. Okay, ls is just ls. I went in, and I will tell you this, I went into the bash rc. If it bothers you that you do not have the LL, which a lot of people really like, what you can do is go in and uncomment these lines right here. This is what I did, plus I added an all right there. So in other words, if I type the letter L or LL, I almost get the same thing. But unless you go in and do that in the bash rc, you're not going to get that. So now that I'm with the ls, let's hit a tab twice, and you see a lot of different ls. Let's go through them routinely. We're going to focus eventually on this last one, but let's go through CPU. And what it does is it tells you the CPU you have. You may have purchased one, you might want to check up on it. Here's your CPU. Has a lot of extra information, a lot of flags associated with it, and I'll leave it at that. You might want to look at IPC. Okay, it has to deal with some of the memory and how it's being distributed around in the system. Okay, logins, okay, are essentially, okay, I'm sitting in the root. I've been logged in. These are all the other logins that are available on the system that I'm on. 2 tabs, and then NS. You know, I'll leave that. That's kind of the S binary. Someone might have an interest in that. Okay, let's see. I did NS PG. I think that's this is the PGP. I'm not going to basically go any further with that. Attributes, nothing there. LSFD, that's a little too much. You might have an interest in it. I don't know. The interrupt request, you might have some interest there. I'm not exactly sure what, but our interest will eventually be, okay, when we get to the last one, okay. Here's my memory. I look at the memory state. On this system, I have 32 gig. You might have an interest in this. You might have an interest in staring at your USBs. However, if the system is off-site, you might not be able to get there. This is associated with your disk drive setup. I'm not sure anyone would be interested in that. Maybe someone might have an interest there. Go through the mods. This is, you know, someone might have an interest in this information. And then LSPCI, that's where we wanted to eventually get to. And that, I think I'm going to have to extend the screen. That is quite interesting. You have the USB controllers, the SATA controllers, but in each individual person's machine, this front number may change based upon how the system is built. In ours, we have what is essentially 6 10 gig controllers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that and paste it right here. I'm not sure I really need to do that because I'm going to basically slide this to the side and start using, maybe I'll slide it to this side and start using the other window to move around in here. If you go to the well, first of all, if you go to the base directory and you hit LL, you'll see all of this other information that you generally see in all Unix systems. But we're going to direct your attention to this. And what you see here is a lot of different information. Firmware, devices, class. I would explore them, but I would not change anything in them. Basically, this is an exploratory video just to see if you can explore what you've got. Now, as a side issue, I can go back to my networking, and I see that I have the names of the networking being ENO1 to ENO6. Now, ENO1 is associated with the bridge 0, so ENO1, not too surprisingly, let me show you. If I do a find from my current location, looking for the name ENO1, you will find it existing in essentially 2 areas here. The first area here, well, 3, but the second one is associated with the bridge, you can see. Again, you bring up this and you realize ENO1 or somebody is associated with that. And if you look down right here, these last digits right here, let me see if I can highlight what I'm saying. Here are the digits, and here are the digits. These match each other because network slot ENO1 is associated with that location on the PCI card. Let us go to that location. And you see a lot of information here related to that. Let me expand it out. Okay, this is the directory you're in, but here's a lot of the information. You can look at the address. For example, this cat, the address. And what you see is the MAC number. You can cat the speed. Oops. Now, it is a 10 gig, but I have it plugged into a gigabit switch here at my office. So it's registering that it's connected and downgraded to 1 gig speed. So there's a lot of different information you can look at here. So with that, I'm going to leave this as it is, because I would suggest you probe around and look at these files. What you'll find on one of them is operational state, for example. If I do a cat operational state, it'll tell me it's up. But if I go into system and then do a find name ENO2, change a directory into that one. Although you can get there from this location. For example, if I go here, copy and paste. Whoops. Mistake on my part. You'll find the same information. You could go into and find carrier or operational state, cat operational state, and it is down. So you can get all of this information from this location. Now, let's go a step back and look at this, and what you'll see is if I went to present working directory, to system, class, and net, this is the network, I can find ENO1 points to the PCI device, ENO2 points to the other one, and so on and so forth. If you go in and you look at those files, let me draw them back, I copied and pasted them, you will find exactly that. In other words, you will find that this one is associated with this one. You will find the 4001 associated with here, all the way down. So you'll see all of this associated with the PCI, LS PCI. So with that, this is how the network is constructed internally. What you'll also find here is the local and the bridge. For example, if I happen to decide for some strange enough reason that I wanted to create a bridge, and I'm just going to create it, and I'm going to add it to the configuration. Now it's not, the bridge is there, but it's not connected to a port or slave yet. And suddenly, guess what? It's sitting right here. So as you create things in this upper interface, realize as you create things in bridges, they are basically created in the system down here under system, class, and net. This is beneficial if you wanted to inspect the state, operational state of any of your hardware cards and the bridges or switches. Okay, so I think that's enough for this video. I think we'll call it quits. What I wanted to accomplish is to show you how to do a LS to inspect your own hardware. You can dig further if you need to. The network is where we're going next. So now we know how this system lays out, and essentially the next video or a later video, we're going to talk about how we do networking.